Good morning, everybody. Well, welcome back to the 38th Annual Governor's Conference on Tourism. I can't tell you how thrilled I am to be able to be here in Portland. Jeff, thank you so much for your warm welcome to your community, for the hospitality that we've already received, and we're so excited about tonight when we get a chance to get out and explore the city and as part of our White Guides program, and of course the food truck lunch today as well. True Portland stuff, and we're grateful for you and for the hospitality that we've received so far. You know, just to be able to be together with you, to see your faces, to be together in real life, not have you some little postage stamp on a Zoom or a Teams meeting is a beautiful, beautiful thing. And I just want you to know, I'm here for all of it. I believe you are too. The responses I got from you last night, both here and back in the bar. How some of you got so many tickets, I don't know. But you obviously know the right people. I hope all of you enjoyed the award ceremony last night and the opportunity to really honor and revere folks that are really making a difference for not just our industry, but for our state. Let's give all of our award recipients one more round of applause. As we begin this morning, it is my great honor to welcome some very special guests to open up our conference and provide us with their welcome.
Good morning. I'm Elizabeth Woody, and I'm a member of the Confederated Tribes of Warm Springs and a former Oregon Poet Laureate. I'm going to read to you a poem today titled Warm Springs River. The river, of course, is located on our reservation and is part of the Great Columbia River Basin. Daylight moves the wind while the river fastens on a cloak of rippling tensions. Through the reeds, sage blossoming, skin shivers from the distance of heat in the pinto sky, bright with expectations. Thirst has fingertips of grief over remnant scaffolds of small flowers, as one markless palm of thunder at the rimrock, the broad pulse of the body has been overwhelmed. A filament of light wavers on the liquid turn over lichenous stone. It sinks in its own gravity. It is a quick fin and tail. Our eventual blindness is the underside of leaves, myopically stunning in the retinal flicker of signals. Shallow desire is shadow cast from forms bent in embrace, as salmons smell in a spectrum of seasons their compulsion. We no longer possess extravagance to throw between us as shells of dentalium bridal veils and belts. Several loose sequins of scales fray into clouds, beam over the hillsides, opal into swaying yellow bunchgrass. Forgotten rivers fill their mouths with fragments from excess. Zigzag basalt springs, green lush V's of moisture point to the feast of supple trout and the brief thrumming of flies. The current floats into secretive arms of safety. The burn of volcanic springs cools in depths of caution. Welcome to the Oregon Governor's Conference on Tourism. Thank you.
God, that was phenomenal. Thank you again. My name is Harry Dalgard, Director of the Regional Cooperative Tourism Program at Travel Oregon. This morning's sponsor, Chinook Winds Casino and Resorts and the Confederated Tribes of the Siletz Indians together make up the single largest employer in Lincoln County and contribute significantly to the economic health, well-being, and vitality of Lincoln City. Please join me in welcoming Dee Pigsley, Chairman of the Confederated Tribes of Siletz Indians.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting us, and thank you for the wonderful morning presentation. And I'm sorry I missed Bobby's presentation, but I know her well, and she's a wonderful person. I'm glad she was honored. I want to thank you for including all the tribes. A few years ago, there were hardly any tribes on the agenda. I think we were on the agenda. We were sponsored for several years before tribes actually got included. And so it's really great to be able to be here and to present to you today, and for you to see some of our tribal members that were in the grand entry, and really appreciate all that attend. Our tribe is a tribe on the Oregon coast. We have about 5,600 tribal members. We once had a 1 million acre reservation that eventually got reduced down to, I think today we own about 11,000 acres. History wasn't good to us, but as a result of termination and restoration, we were able to build a wonderful casino, Chinook Winds Casino Resort. And you'll notice in the videos that are being presented, it's been a wonderful business for the tribe. It's provided money for our culture program, for our elders, for scholarships for students. And we actually can send any student that wants to go to college can get a scholarship and go to college. The casino provides many things, but we're a great community partner. We sponsor all kinds of community events, and we have wonderful live entertainment that you won't find. Well, now you can find them on the coast because tribes are bringing them there. But our neighbors down south and to the east of us provide live entertainment, which is something that was new to me and new to the coast. The casino sponsors community events. We have an annual powwow at the casino every year in November that celebrates our tribal restoration. We have many things to do. If you don't gamble, you can go clamming, you can fish, you can fly kites, you can find floats on the beach, and it's really become a very active community as far as working with the tribe, planning activities to keep visitors having fun and being safe. We can't promise you won't have a huge rainfall or icy roads or tsunamis, and we always thought we were prepared for the worst, and then we had a fire. And so the casino's kind of been a haven for people who, when we're out of it, when there's no electricity, when things happen, they can go to the casino, they can stay warm, they can eat. And we've even provided rooms for them to stay in when things are really bad, which with COVID, sometimes things got really bad. And hopefully that's beyond us now. But as a tribe, our tribal administration is in Lincoln, is in Siletz, and we provide services from Siletz. We own offices Portland, Salem, and in Eugene that provide the same services to tribal members as well as non-tribal members. And because of the casino, we're able to provide culture programs that have been lost for many years because of termination. We teach language classes, basketry classes, regalia making, beading, flint carving, and we even teach kids how to harvest eels, which is kind of interesting. I've not learned that. I've watched it. But it's an activity that our tribal elders and their elders learned when they were very young and provided food mostly from the rivers and the ocean. So we have a vibrant economy. Chinook Winds Casino Resort has provided many benefits to the tribe that we would have never had it not been for Chinook Winds Casino. And so we welcome visitors. We have many things that happen in Siletz. We have an annual powwow, a salmon bake, lots of cultural activities that occur year-round. We teach the language. It's being taught in our school in Siletz. And so it's a wonderful place to visit. We wish you could come and join us. And remember, it's better at the beach.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Petra Hackworth, Vice President of Global Sales at Travel Oregon. I'm beyond thrilled to welcome one of our main sponsors of this convention to the stage from the Port of Portland. The Port is more than just an award-winning airport. If you've recently flown, you know why, with clear signage, strong customer service, and local Oregon businesses lining all the areas of the airport. Whether it's your first time to Oregon or your 10th time as a visitor to Oregon, the first welcome you have is the Oregon businesses and the nice Oregon hospitality. Travel Oregon is so grateful for the sponsorship with the Port of Portland. And with that, I'd like to welcome David Zelke, the Port Director of Air Service and one of my all-time favorite travel companions, to the stage.
Thank you, Petra. So Todd, the commission, the entire staff, congratulations on a great conference. Todd and I were talking this morning that how special these moments are when we all have a chance to get together like this. I know how much work goes into this, and so just want to congratulate you on putting on a great conference. I do want to congratulate, again, Bobby and Carrie from Travel Lane County and their teams for the awards last night. To have the fact the governor was there presenting, I thought that was so special. And Bob, we were thrilled you at our table this morning. You look beautiful, by the way. So we're excited to be here. I want to introduce my team at the Port. We've got Mary Beth Melmer, we've got Sonia Harvey, we've got Katie Meeker, and Rick Aizawa is going to be here shortly. He had something going on with one of his children, got sick, but we've got a great team at the Port, and I'm really proud to be here with them today. Two things I want to talk about this morning. One is air service, and two is the PDX Next project. Some of you heard Curtis Robinhold, our executive director, talk yesterday at the commission meeting. I'm going to go through some of that again today, but a lot of you weren't there yesterday. So first thing, this summer, biggest summer ever to Europe, we'll have four nonstop flights to Europe this summer. Daily British Airways to London's Heathrow Airport with connections beyond. Amsterdam nonstop with Delta, daily with connections beyond Schiphol to all the markets that many of your visitors are coming from. Iceland Air will have 6 frequencies a week this summer, most ever, to Reykjavik with connections to the entire European continent. And Condor will have 3 frequencies a week to Frankfurt, one of our biggest inbound markets, as many of you know, Germany. And they have a brand new airplane, the A330neo, with lie-flat seats in business class. So there'll be some days this summer, there'll be 1,000 seats coming and going from the European continent. So just a huge win for us and all of you. And I do want to call out our friends at Travel Oregon and Travel Portland. When we get these wins, we wouldn't be able to recruit or retain this service without tremendous partnerships with many of you in the room, but specifically Travel Oregon, Travel Portland. Our first call is to Billy and to Petra, and how can we work together to help build demand for these flights? In fact, the Travel Oregon and Travel Portland team will be with us in Amsterdam in June, talking to Delta and KLM about the Delta flight to Amsterdam. So we're excited about that. Asia, it's not back yet. Many of you know that, as some of our biggest inbound international markets are Japan, Korea, China, other markets beyond. We hope in the fall of 23, or we know by the spring of 24, we have every intention of having nonstop service back to the Pacific. First flight we think will be the Incheon flight to Seoul, Korea, and we're also very focused on getting service back to Japan, which we have tremendous business cultural ties with the country of Japan that goes all the way back to 1987. So we're excited about Europe, and we're thinking good thoughts about Asia in the months ahead. Okay, I've got the clicker here. Okay, I'm going to drive the clicker. I forgot that. All right. Next picture. This is a kind of a footprint of what PDX Next is being built to look like. We're in the final stages of PDX Next. It's a $2.5 billion project. It will double the size of PDX. It'll take us from a capacity of roughly 20 million to 35 million, which we anticipate we'll have by the year 2045. So this gives you a sense, more flow, but at the same time, we are intending to keep the heart and soul of PDX, which all of you love, I know. Next slide here. Believe it or not, this is the front door to PDX. When you go into the airport today, you see a low ceiling, you see a back wall ticket counters. All that will be gone. The ceilings will be 50 to 60 feet tall, and it'll be completely open. And this is literally the front door to the airport. You'll walk in and you'll see the ticket counters, and there'll be a high ceiling and the big Y-beams holding up that 9-acre roof made of Douglas, locally sourced Douglas fir. The goal is to bring nature inside the terminal, and you'll be able to see that on our next slide. Once you get past, when we drop your bags off and you check in for your flight, you're just going to literally walk towards the trees. And it's going to be really a Pacific Northwest vibe here with huge skylights, trees, plants, and again, it's trying to bring nature inside to make people comfortable as they get through the experience of checking in, getting through security, and getting to the gate. So we're very excited about what PDX Next is going to look like. And keep in mind, I may have said this, but I'll say it 2 more times. 13 months from now, this will be open, and you'll be able to operate all of our flights and be able to bring all of you into our brand new airport next spring. The next slide, this is what I think. I told Katie yesterday, she said, well, then say it. This is my favorite part of the new terminal. It's the atrium. It's got the stadium seating. It's got the music venue at the bottom with a baby grand piano. We have a volunteer music program at PDX. Many of you have heard music over the years. That will be there. On the mezzanine is a restaurant looking out over the airfield to see the planes coming and going. And meter and greeters, instead of standing down at the end now by a little coffee shop, you'll be able to sit in the bleachers and wait for your friends and family to come in at the airport. So this is pre-secure. This is what it's going to look like. And again, it's my favorite spot of the entire airport. So the biggest question we got during construction wasn't about the carpet, believe it or not. It was, when is that darn connecting corridor coming back? Well, it will be back in May of 24. So this is going to give you a sense. The BC concourses, where primarily Alaska is, will connect to the DE, where United, Delta, and Southwest are. So we're really excited that the connecting corridor is being built, and it'll be put back in place by May of 24. Once you get through security, we're creating a neighborhood vibe. Portland city streets, more shops, a lot of vegetation, and to give you a sense of what you're going to want to experience before you head down to your gates. And so we're very excited about this. There's going to be 22 new concessions by the end of 25, and 22 concessions are all local concepts, 18 are locally owned, and 10 of them are women or minority-owned businesses, and we're really proud of that. The carpet is back. Most of the thoroughfares where you're taking roller boards, we wanted to make it more easy for people to get through the airport, so it's going to either be Oregon white oak or terrazzo tile. But in 10 strategically located places, we're going to have the iconic carpet for you to be able to take selfies or sit and relax or whatever you want to do. But we're really excited to have the iconic carpet back. We're calling this Forest to Frame. When ZGF, that's the architectural firm locally here, that's done a lot of our work at PDX over the years, They came to us and said, we want to build this 9-acre single beam, single span roof over the new airport. We challenged them. We said, how do we do it where we can harvest the wood and make it good for the land? And what we did is we worked with 40 forest companies, mill workers, and fabricators, and they came up with a strategy. How could they sustainably build the new roof and do it on a sustainable basis? And we really did it. We're really excited about that. 13 local forests, including the Yakima Nation, the Skokomish, and the Coquel tribes were part of the forest companies we worked with to bring the roof in and be able to work with local companies in Oregon and in southwestern Washington. We're really excited about that. And we think this is a blueprint going forward for generations to come. And now we'd like to be able to show you some of the team that made all this happen.
Flight PDX-10W, now arriving at gate 2024.
We know you love the carpet, but soon you'll have a reason to look up. How do you take one of the most loved airports in the country and make it even better, even more Pacific Northwest?
Design it so it feels like the forest.
You start with lumber from sustainably managed forests in Oregon and Washington.
You source from tribal lands across the region, including community forests and small landowners.
Making sure to be able to trace the lumber back to its origins, from forest to frame.
We come up with a way to make these big, beautiful beams.
You hire thousands of skilled tradespeople to build a 9-acre roof right on the airfield. Together we build something we hope you'll be proud of, a true testament to the spirit and people of the Pacific Northwest. We can't wait for you to see.
Thank you. And one thing I forgot to mention was I just wanted to thank all of you and the teams you left behind before you came into Portland for the conference, because you are the ones that make Oregon a world-class tourism destination. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, David, and to all of our friends with the Port of Portland. You know, folks, I doubt it was lost on you, but there's a really important point, I think, in what Curtis shared at the commission meeting yesterday and what David just shared with us now. And that is just how very lucky, how very blessed we are in Oregon to have the folks that are managing our gateway airport understanding that they're part of the travel and tourism industry. They're not a transportation hub. They see themselves as that gateway, that opportunity to welcome our visitors from around the world into Oregon. They also see themselves as that opportunity for that last great impression as they depart. That is not the way it is in every airport. And you know because you've traveled, and we're very, very lucky to have our friends at the Port of Portland. So thank you for what you do and the way you do it. I have the privilege this morning of introducing Jeff Miller, but I cannot do a better job than Wesley did last night in recognizing Jeff, who is the president and CEO of Travel Portland, in recognizing him as one of the true leaders in the travel and tourism industry. So I'm glad you were able to be there last night. I'm glad you were able to hear about Jeff's work. You know, the things that I saw during the pandemic were truly unrivaled by Jeff. His optimism, his hope, the way he galvanized his team and this industry. You know, one of my favorite little pieces, and he's heard me say this before, his team has heard me say this before, is in the midst of all that, they started coming out with what they called their good news newsletter, because there was positive press that was coming out about Portland. It wasn't everything, you know, that you were necessarily hearing. And they wanted to make sure that the industry and their stakeholders knew that there were good news. There was good news being shared. And that good news newsletter carried a lot of folks and really buoyed the industry here in Portland during COVID. So my friends, it is my great honor to welcome Jeff Miller to the stage. Jeff, I just got to tell you, my friend, that it's great to be here in Portland, so we can all be here for Portland. Jeff, come on up.
Todd, thank you for those kind words. Last night was such an honor for me, and thank you all for being there. It was a lot of fun. One of the things that I said at the commission meeting, and I think it's really important that this entire room hear this, Portland is only as good as what we're surrounded by. And I look out, and I know many of you, and I know the communities you live in and the beautiful places, and we love being your big city, but we like being the big city surrounded by the gorgeousness of the rest of Oregon. So thank you all. Thank you for what you do. I know in all of our communities, we work very closely with our elected officials, and I'm very fortunate to have 3 elected officials, one from the city, the county, and metro on our board. And this morning, I'm very pleased to introduce Commissioner Carmen Rubio. She'll come up and speak to you. She's recently joined our board and the Visitors Development Fund Board. I tell her it's the best liaison role in City Council. We're the fun people. We do all the good stuff. She also oversees Prosper Portland, the Housing Bureau, the Bureau of Planning, Sustainability, and Development Services. So very, very important to the workings of our city. She brings a wealth of public policy experience, and one of the things that she is committed to is making Portland work for everyone. And as I think about what we've been through as a city, as we come out of this, I think we are more equitable. We are more inclusive, and people like Commissioner Rubio are making that happen, so I really appreciate that. She began her career in public service with Multnomah County Commissioner Serena Cruz, Portland Mayor Tom Potter, and Portland City Commissioner Nick Fish. So a lot of policy and a lot of political experience there. In 2009, she was tapped as the executive director of the Latino Network, a nonprofit dedicated to advocacy on behalf of the Latinx community. She was elected to City Council in 2020 and was born in Hillsborough as the granddaughter of immigrants. Who came to this country as migrant workers. She was the first in her family to graduate from college and the first Latina on the Portland City Council, something to be very proud of. Please join me. Please join me in welcoming Commissioner Carmen Rubio.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Jeff, for that really, really kind introduction. So I'm the commissioner overseeing the Housing and Economic Development portfolio, and as Jeff mentioned, yes, I do have the best liaison role in the city of Portland as the liaison and board member to Travel Portland, and it's my honor to be with all of you today and to especially give you a very warm Portland welcome to our City of Roses. It means so much for each of you to be here. And I know that most of you are visiting from destinations throughout the great state. And so, as my grandma used to say, nuestra casa es su casa. So our home is your home, very much every minute of your stay here in our town, in our city. So I'm new to my liaison role in this role, but not new to appreciating all that our cities and counties and towns across the state has to offer. And that appreciation for me started very young. As Jeff mentioned, I grew up in Western Washington County in the rural part of North Plains. And I grew up in a time, and I'm dating myself a little bit here, but when there wasn't a lot going on out there. There was just a lot of farmland. And I come from a huge Mexican family, and I have over 30 first cousins. Yes, over 30 first cousins in my family. That's just on my mom's side. So keeping a lot of us really active, if you can imagine, at a certain age, that was a lot for my aunts and my uncles and my parents and grandparents. And so they tried to keep us active a lot and keep us out of each other's hair. And so Hence, Saturdays became road trip days for the family. And those are the days that they would take subsets of us up, either hiking at Multnomah Falls, shopping or playing at the beach at Seaside, or, inner tubing in Mount Hood on those lucky days, or just any part of Portland that we could go that was, beautiful, accessible, and good for kids and families. So it should be no surprise that now I've become that parent and that auntie who shuttles kiddos around to these very same places. And my point is that these experiences aren't just, stories, but they're multi-generational stories, right? They're part of our history and part of the culture that we create in our families. And they're just a mere fraction of all that our great state has to offer and all that we have in our own backyard. And we are really glad that this industry is also coming through on the other side of a really hard period, right, in our communities. No one knows more than you that it's been a tough few years for Oregon. And in Portland, we're working through our own very intense challenges, and I know you've heard all about them, and a changing downtown. And then we're also dealing now with the impacts, of climate change, weather changes, wildfires, and the pandemic, and the recovery from the pandemic on our state economy. And this industry, it's still reverberating, but we are recovering. And while there could be a lot of unknowns about what's going to happen in the future, we are stabilizing. Things are on an upward trend. And what we can also count on is that draw that keeps visitors and peoples and family coming back to Oregon, to different parts of our great, beautiful state. That draw is still there, and it's still really, really strong. Like other governments across Oregon, my council colleagues and I are working really, really hard every single day to confront these challenges head on. And we know just how vital the tourism industry is to the health of our state economy. And we're so grateful to have public and private sector and industry partners, many of you in this room, and also a governor who are all strong advocates when and where needed, but also who help us develop real solutions that have staying power, that are not just Band-Aid, but are going to get us through the tough times and into the times where we're thriving. And I would be remiss if I did not also thank Travel Portland President and CEO Jeff Miller and his excellent staff for working really hard on all these things, and did such a wonderful example of the right way to do it during our most challenging time. So thank you, Jeff. Thank you and your team for setting such a great example for all of us. All our communities in Oregon are very special places, and they're very different and unique from any other places in the world. That's what I believe, and I know that that's what a lot of you believe here too. And all these special experiences make up the quirky, special, coveted brand that is Oregon, and are deserving of the focused attention that we have here today. And so I look through the speaker lineup. You have really great speakers and really important topics that get to the heart of why we're doing what we're doing and what makes us exceptional in the industry. And speaking of the next few days, I hope you take in all that our city has to offer. And I'm sure our Travel Portland team and other local folks are eager to recommend the very best of our city with you. So remember that nuestra casa es su casa, okay? Remember that. But in closing, I just want to say just how much we appreciate your being here. It means so much to us. It has been a challenging time, and we are coming out the other side. And we really appreciate your collegiality and the fact that we're all here around one goal. And we're in this together with you, and we look forward to a healthy, robust, and even better 2023. So thank you so much for being here for Portland, and have a great conference. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, Commissioner Rubio, thank you. Jeff, you're lucky. She's a great liaison. Yeah, how lucky are we in the travel and tourism industry to have an elected official that understands, appreciates, respects, and works on the travel and tourism industry the way Commissioner Rubio does. Thank you so much for joining us here this morning, Commissioner. Commissioner Rubio mentioned her work with the economic development portfolio, and it's a beautiful segue for what I wanted to share with you a little bit about this morning. Because since our inception, Travel Oregon has been rooted in economic development. So when we declare, as we do in our 10-year strategic vision, that we see Oregon as a welcoming state where tourism drives economic prosperity for all, we are stating unequivocally and unapologetically that we are committed to ensuring that tourism remains that strong contributor to Oregon's economy. And this is not just something that is held by the staff at Travel Oregon, but it is held by the 9 individuals that are appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Senate as volunteers. Thank you, AV man. To volunteer their time to selflessly ensure the advancement of the travel and tourism industry. And I'd like to ask you to please join me right now in thanking the members of the Oregon Tourism Commission who have joined us here this morning. You know, the tourism industry's success has long been defined by some as how many heads are we putting in beds? And don't get me wrong, that metric certainly is linked to increases in visitor spending and job creation and tax revenue, all vitally important. But I also believe that we have to expand our approach to what we mean when we speak of something being better, because it doesn't always need to mean or should mean bigger or faster or more. In fact, at Travel Oregon, we believe that sometimes by slowing down and looking at the big picture with a level of intentionality, we will not only be able to increase the economic vitality in Oregon, we can also work to preserve the scenic wonder of our state, to enhance the visitor experience, and to increase livability and equity for our residents and our visitors alike. Now, to bring the 10-year strategic vision to life, internal changes must be made. Namely, we know we need at Travel Oregon to build a heightened level of collaboration and cross-functionality into the DNA of the work that we do at Travel Oregon, into our structure, into our operations. This is only going to serve to strengthen our ability to prioritize and manage our work even more effectively while retaining and developing this incredibly talented team of folks that show up every day and say, we're willing to do this crazy Travel Oregon thing together with you. As we take on new bodies of work around destination stewardship at Travel Oregon, we'll be applying the 3 lenses of racial equity, regenerative tourism, and economic prosperity. And we're going to need structured processes and teams that will keep us accountable to those 3 lenses. So these shifts and outcomes are at the center of the organizational design that Travel Oregon is currently undertaking. We recently completed the second phase of designing the teams and the roles within our new functional design. And the rollout of this information with our staff team is planned for later this month in early May. We're on track for this new organizational design to take effect later this spring. Until then, what I need you to know is that every member of the Travel Oregon team is in their current role. They continue to be your primary points of contact. That is the question I often get the most, and that is what I want to make sure that you take away here today. And we'll continue to be communicating with you as we move forward. Because fundamentally, my friends, this organizational design process is about making sure that we as an agency continue to do the very best work that we can. Not only with each other internally, but in service to you, in service to your organizations, in service to your businesses, and in service to the tourism community at large. Our definition of our best work is perhaps best reflected in our mission statement that's part of our 10-year strategic vision. Travel Oregon inspires travel that uplifts Oregon communities, collaborating with stakeholders and partners to align as stewards of Oregon. We will work to optimize economic opportunity, advance equity, and respect the ecosystems, the cultures, and the places that make Oregon, Oregon. For the next decade, our strategic vision serves as a roadmap to guide Travel Oregon in the work that we'll undertake. From advertising campaigns and sales promotions, to destination and community projects that we develop alongside each and every one of you, to the grant dollars that we deploy and the hiring decisions that we make. If we have learned anything over the last few years, it's that situations are incredibly fluid and dynamic, and being nimble is going to be key. However, this vision will fall short if all that it is Travel Oregon's vision. That's certainly not what I want it to be. It's not what we at Travel Oregon want it to be, and it's not what you've allowed it to be. In fact, over an 18-month period beginning in the fall of 2020, we engaged nearly 2,000 of you, representing tourism, the Tourism Commission, regional and local DMOs, tourism-related businesses, our industry workforce, nonprofits, the Travel Oregon staff, and government agencies. We hosted surveys and listening sessions and interviews and focus groups. We engaged local consultants to lead racial equity trainings across the state. We held discussions that were only open to the 9 federally recognized tribes here in Oregon. And Travel Oregon also worked with a local company called Empress Rules, a local equity and inclusion consulting organization, to help us understand how we could more meaningfully engage with the BIPOC community. The result will be a fundamental shift in how we do our work. We call it our destination stewardship approach. This 3-pronged approach seeks to balance and meet the economic, environmental, and social cultural needs of Oregon as a destination, while working in close partnership with the destination's tourism industry and our residents. To implement this approach, we've taken preliminary steps to employ 3 lenses to guide our future decisions, our programming, and our actions. The prosperity lens. How is our work going to best optimize economic impact? What tourism industry jobs will be created and supported through this work? Are the economic benefits being realized equitably at a regional and community level across the state? The racial equity lens. What are the racial inequities that currently exist that might be related to this work that we're undertaking? Who will benefit from this decision that we're making? Who might be harmed or burdened by that decision? And how might unintended consequences contributing to racial inequities be mitigated as we undertake this work? And the regenerative tourism lens. What types of effects will this work have on our natural environment and on future generations of Oregonians? Will the results of this work support visitors in having positive impact on the destination? Have residents and other stakeholders been involved in an inclusive way, informing, validating, and dare I say it, co-creating the management of a destination? This is not work for the faint of heart. But as John F. Kennedy said, we choose to go to the moon in this decade and to do other things not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and our skills, because that challenge is one we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone. Our 10-year vision is the right and necessary work that will create jobs, revere our natural environment, and preserve a quality of life for all who call Oregon home. And it's a challenge I am willing to accept, and it's a challenge I am no longer willing to postpone. For this reason, the usual keynote time is going to be dispersed throughout the conference. as we take a few minutes to focus on a specific objective that's contained in the 10-year strategic vision at each of the 4 general sessions that we have occurring throughout the conference. These 4 objectives are: Oregon's tourism economy is flourishing. Oregon is striving to be a place of equity. Oregon delivers remarkable experiences, and Oregon respects its natural environments. Let me begin with Oregon delivers remarkable experiences. Within this objective reside 5 different strategies that focus us, all of us, on identifying, developing, and promoting experiences that make Oregon a thriving place to live and to visit. Strategies that bolster regenerative tourism business and product development in urban and rural areas and on tribal lands, providing visitors with those immersive visitor experiences. Why regenerative? Or perhaps you might be thinking, what's regenerative? Well, simply put, for me, it's about moving beyond leaving a place as you found it. We've heard that for years. Leave nothing but footprints. Regenerative travel is a belief that you can actually flip that. You can leave it better. Not just the same, you can leave it better than you found it. It's about replanting an area that's been devastated by wildfire, restoring a riparian zone to improve habitat for salmon, or frequenting those hyper-local makers and chefs and artisans so that you're amplifying the financial benefit of visitor spending in that local community. These may not seem like great big things, but as St. Mother Teresa said, not all of us can do great things. But we can do small things with great love. This sentiment is as true for those of us who work and serve in Oregon's tourism and hospitality industry as it is for anyone. And it's why the strategy to develop, attract, and retain our industry's workforce is firmly embedded in this same objective of Oregon providing remarkable experiences. A remarkable workforce provides remarkable experiences. These are the folks that have a vision for a new business. They take the risks. They take out the business loan. They mortgage their home. They also wait our tables, transport us to our destination, offer us a taste of their latest vintage. They clean our room. And they infuse our ventures with stories and history, and they prepare our meals. So please, when you leave here, don't enable others to refer to some who are employed in our industry as being an unskilled workforce. In my eyes, they're not only highly skilled, but they have the privilege of doing small things with great love for Oregon's visitors who are here visiting from around the world all day long. Similarly, the work that Travel Oregon undertakes as a destination management organization is rooted in our purest intention to be in service to you and in service to the entire travel and tourism industry. And our desire is to be ever responsive to what our stakeholders need. To develop a strategic vision which focuses on long-term success and on protecting our state's people and natural resources for the future is not something we could ever do alone. The success of our industry relies on, is literally born from strong alliances. And so to ensure that we will always be in lockstep with the industry that we serve, we knew alignment with our stakeholders would be key. To share some illustrations of how we are stronger together as we're stewarding and developing new and existing tourism experiences and amenities in Oregon, please welcome to our stage Alexa Carey, Community-Based Services Director, and Hillary Sager, Destination Development Manager with Travel Oregon.
We'd like to start by inviting all of you to take a moment to think about your last truly remarkable travel experience. Maybe it happened during a bucket list international trip, or maybe it was on your way here to the Governor's Conference from elsewhere in Oregon. While we each have our own definition of what makes an experience remarkable, the way those moments make us feel is something we can all relate to. The joy and connection that results from the work we do in the travel and tourism industry is truly unmatched. And everyone in this room plays a role in how we deliver remarkable visitor experiences every day here in Oregon. At Travel Oregon, we strive to approach our experience development work through a regenerative lens, prioritizing projects that will be sustainable in the long run and that reflect the authenticity of each unique destination and region in our state.
We elevate destinations with a community-based approach. This engages local and regional partners at a destination level to define strategic priorities to implement. In collaboration with local leadership who invites us in, we co-create alignment around outcomes to ensure that there's buy-in. Community engagement combined with an insights-driven and strategy-led programming empowers destinations to evolve as a place that all visitors love to travel to and residents love to live. Currently, 5 destinations are going through our Destination Downtown program that supports the connecting between livability with the backbone of their destination, their main streets, their downtown areas. And those are in places like Clatskanie, Woodburn, and Prineville.
We work with destinations first to identify the unique competitive advantages that make their destination special, and then to support the development of experiences that align with and elevate those unique assets and attributes, be they daytime culinary and recreational adventures or stargazing under an exceptionally dark sky at night. Our investments in community-based development projects can also move the needle to address the challenges both emerging and maturing destinations are facing. This can look like management solutions for heavily trafficked recreation areas, like we've seen with the Waterfall Corridor transportation pilot in the Columbia Gorge. Efforts to diversify product and destinations known for one type of experience in particular, like Visit McMinnville's current efforts to expand their destination's reputation beyond wine by developing outdoor recreation assets as well. And strategies to reduce the swing of seasonality, to improve year-round economic stability and livability in smaller communities, such as mountain biking development efforts currently underway in Corvallis.
We support a statewide culture of learning and development at the same time of those growing professionals that are or are going to be leading a lot of the destination development and destination management initiatives all across the state. Part of this culture includes developing communities of practice, which are like topical learning groups in areas like dark sky development, accessibility, and trails, and a few others. One signature event that's coming up is Destination Development Boot Camp, which is happening in La Grande in May. And that's a convening of both seasoned and emerging professionals who can discuss some of the newest best practices, what are some of these new tourism trends, and what are strategies for really catalytic and impactful initiatives that can be happening around the state. At the same time, we're also developing really strong partnerships and relationships so that people from Baker City to Brookings have these solid connections.
Travel Oregon's approach to supporting Oregon's destinations is never one size fits all. In our work to develop remarkable visitor experiences around the state that everyone can enjoy, we provide a portfolio of investment opportunities to meet each unique community's needs. This includes technical assistance, templatized programming and toolkits, and transformative direct investments and grants. These investments are designed to make a lasting impact that aligns with the priorities of the destination, the region, and Travel Oregon's 10-year strategic vision.
We look forward to collaborating with DMOs, RDMOs, and industry partners. Together, we are creating an increasingly thriving, welcoming state through remarkable experiences where tourism is driving economic prosperity, stewarding the environment, and sharing the places and cultures that make Oregon this incredible place for visitors to visit, but also an incredible place for us to call home. Thank you.
I often tell people that I love what I do. I really love my job. My wife will tease me from time to time about whether or not I could ever retire, and I said, you know, it's a pretty rare trifecta right now. I love what I do. I love where I get to do it, and I love the people I get to do it with, and you just saw two great examples of that. Hillary and Alexa, thank you so much for bringing that presentation. You know, if we're going to talk about remarkable experiences, we think we ought to get a little bit unreasonable for just a moment. And we thought maybe the best way for us to be able to do that is to bring a nationally known bestseller author, the book Unreasonable Hospitality. I don't know how many of you know Will Guidara, but he's going to share with us this morning some of those lessons learned as he's been working in his career in restaurants. He's the former owner, check out this resume, he's a former owner, co-owner of 11 Madison Park, which under his leadership received 4 stars from the New York Times, 3 Michelin stars, and in 2017 was named #1 on the list of the world's 50 best restaurants. He's the host of the Welcome Conference, which is an annual hospitality symposium that brings together like-minded people to share ideas, inspire one another, and connect to form community. He's a graduate of the Hospitality School at Cornell University. He's co-authored 4 different cookbooks, was named one of Crain's New York Businesses 40 Under 40, and is a recipient of the Wall Street Journal's magazine's Innovator Award. In Unreasonable Hospitality, in his book, Unreasonable Hospitality, Will states, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to make magic in a world that desperately needs more of it. My friends, please join me in welcoming to our stage Will Guidara.
Good morning. I just want to say how happy I am to be here. I've long felt a connection to Oregon. First, having been inspired by the creative minds that have come out of here, especially those in my industry. I mean, some of the best restaurants in America have been in Oregon for a really long time. Most recently, Khan by Chef Gregory Gourdet, which in my world right now is being celebrated as the best new restaurant in the entire country. Sincerely. But it was only during the pandemic that I was also similarly inspired by the persistence and the determination, like the pure grit of this place. Restaurants, independent restaurants especially, had a really hard time during the pandemic. And all of us from across the country were desperate to mobilize and organize and find some sense of community such that we could go and organize and ask for relief in Washington, D.C. Now, raise your hand if you know a chef. Okay, so you know that chefs have relatively big egos. The reason we're called independent restaurants is because we have this vehement desire to be independent, and so getting everyone to work together is a monumental task. But it was one person who put her hand up that showed the grit, the persistence, and the determination, and who actually succeeded in bringing together every independent restaurant from around America, and by doing so, got amazing relief that saved our industry. And she's from here, and she's actually with me today. That's Erica Palmer over there, who saved independent restaurants in America. so between the creativity, the inspiration, the persistence, the determination, and the grit of this place, it's an honor to be with all of you. I got to 11 Madison Park in 2006. At the time, it was like a middling brasserie in New York City. We had 2 stars from the New York Times. It was like a popular place. We served steak frite and côte de boeuf and shellfish plateaus. But the room it is in is world class. And there was this desire to transform the experience we were serving such that it matched the grandeur of the room. And so we put together a team and immediately started focusing on excellence, on all the little details of the experience. We got new plates, glasses, silverware. We put less tables in the room. We hired better people. We trained them. We raised the quality of our service and our cuisine, and it worked. In the 4 years to follow, we went from 2 stars to 3 stars to 4 stars. We went from 0 Michelin stars to all 3. We were feeling ourselves pretty hard. And then one day in the mail, I got a letter from the 50 best restaurants in the world, and I opened it up, and it said, "Congratulations, you've been added to the list of the 50 best restaurants in the world. Come to London in June for the ceremony." I was obviously pretty fired up. We went, and we attended the awards. Now, the awards there are not dissimilar to the Oscars. You get dressed up in black tie, you go to this beautiful, larger-than-life cathedral, and you attend the awards. But the big difference is when you're nominated for an Oscar, you want them to call your name, right? You know you're nominated. If they call your name, it means you've won. At the 50 best, it's different. If you're there, you know you're one of the 50 best. You just don't know where on the list you fall until you get there, and they start from 50 and they count down to 1. There, you are desperate that they don't call your name for as long as humanly possible. I got there, and there were assigned seating. Now, keep in mind, I'm in a room filled with my heroes, the people I've looked up to my entire career. And based on where I was sitting relative to where they were all sitting, I tried to guess where on the list we were going to fall. It's part of my nature. I like to gamify everything. A lot of people have asked me over the years, how did I challenge my team to get better and better and better each passing year? My answer is always that I didn't. I just made work feel enough like a game, one that we all really enjoyed playing. And anyone that's ever played a game, if you like playing a game, the more you play, the better you get. I do like to gamify everything. I think it's a great leadership skill. But I tried to gamify it that day, and so I think I guessed number 35. And then the awards started, and I'm sure there was some amount of preamble and thank you for comings and welcomes from the big British debonair MC at the front of the room before they started. But all I really remember was him saying, and kicking things off at number 50, a new restaurant from New York City, 11 Madison Park. And I was like, fuck! Now, what I could not have possibly known, because we were the first restaurant called, it was my first time at the awards, is the assigned seating has nothing to do with where you're going to fall on the list. It's that they know where to train the camera so they can project it on these giant screens in front of everyone in the room. It's when everyone else, regardless of whether they're happy or not about their place on the list, they pretend to be, and they smile, and they wave, and yet there I was looking like I'd just gotten kicked in the groin. I tried to muster up a smile and a wave, but it was a bit too little, a lot too late. There's a little cocktail party kind of in this room right next to the awards. Imagine it's out there compared to here. I was out there having a drink, and the chef Massimo Bottura, who is a very famous chef, he has a restaurant in Italy that would later go on to be #1 in the world, walked up to me and in his very thick Italian accent, he goes, "Hey, you looked really happy up there." Fair enough. I did what any responsible and mature person would do in a profound moment of disappointment. I left the party early, went back to our hotel, and started drinking. Going through the stages of grief. First, anger, sincerely. Like, what's going on here? We're one of the best restaurants in the United States of America. How are we last on this list? And this is where some people jump in, and they question my perspective. I said, wait, hold on. Why are you focusing on the fact that you were last on the list? You're one of the top 50 in the entire world. That's a big deal. Raise your hand if you've ever seen The Last Dance, the documentary about Michael Jordan. Okay, everyone should watch it if you haven't. It's really good. One of the things I love most about that documentary is it talks about how Jordan, if someone accidentally bumped into him during a game, he would convince himself that they'd done it on purpose just so he had something to get him fired up and feeling competitive. One of my quotes from my dad, you'll hear me talk about him a lot today, is adversity is a terrible thing to waste. He always says that you can't control what life throws at you, but you can control how you react to it, what you learn from it, how you allow it to fuel you. Sometimes I like to manufacture adversity just so I have something to respond to. Although that night I actually didn't. I was genuinely upset that we were last place on that list. Went through all the stages, ultimately ending up at acceptance. Here's the thing. It's patently absurd to say that one restaurant is the best restaurant in the entire world. What that list acknowledges is the restaurant that's having the greatest impact on the world of restaurants. And the more I thought about it that night, the more it became clear to me that we had not yet done anything of real impact. We were excellent. Our food was incredibly delicious and technically proficient. Our service was as close to technically perfect as possible. And our dining room was one of the most beautiful out there. And it was the combination of those three things that had gotten us onto the list in the first place, but we had not yet done anything to change the conversation. When I looked at others that had topped the list before us, there's a chef in Spain. His name is Ferran Adria. He had a restaurant called El Bulli. He created molecular gastronomy, the technique of using chemicals and stabilizers in cuisine. That technique has had such unbelievable impact that it's now used at almost every restaurant, whether you know it or not. There's a chef named René Redzepi from Copenhagen. He pioneered the idea of foraging and sourcing local ingredients and doing it in a crazy way, believing that a great meal shouldn't make sense to have anywhere in the world but exactly where you're having it. And similarly, the ripple effect of his impact is felt worldwide. Each of these chefs was unreasonable in pursuit of their product and relentless in pursuing what needed to change about the thing that they were serving, what they could do to move the conversation forward. My dad gave me a paperweight when I was a kid. It said, "What would you attempt to do if you knew you could not fail?" He always asked me to answer that question honestly, and whatever the answer was, to do everything I could to try to accomplish that. Telling me that far too many people are scared to say their most audacious goals out loud for fear that if they do and don't achieve them, they'll let themselves and those around them down. But he'd always go on to say that if you don't have the confidence and conviction to say your biggest, scariest goal out loud, it's very unlikely you'll ever achieve it. That night, on a cocktail napkin, and admittedly not great handwriting, I wrote, "We will be the #1 restaurant in the world." But an idea without a strategy is nothing more than a pipe dream. I needed to figure out what our impact was going to be. If those chefs were unreasonable in pursuit of product, relentless in pursuit of what needed to change about it, that night I decided that I wanted to be unreasonable in pursuit of people and relentless in pursuit of the one thing that would never change, which is the human desire to feel seen, our collective need to feel a sense of belonging, and the human desire to feel welcome. And so underneath, "We will be #1 in the world," I wrote 2 words, "unreasonable hospitality." Then I passed out. Next morning, I got on a plane to head back to New York, looked at the cocktail napkin, and quickly realized I actually had no idea what unreasonable hospitality meant. But that's okay. I think far too often, we spend so much time trying to very, very perfectly articulate a goal that we never actually start pursuing one. If you have an idea, one that you feel enough of a connection to, you need to trust in the fact that as you pursue it, it will reveal itself to you along the way. I got back to the restaurant, got my entire team together, and started talking about this idea. In restaurants, we have this thing called pre-service. It's the 30 minutes right before we open the doors to welcome our guests where we get together. I believe it's the most important 30 minutes of the day. It's when the people I work with cease being a collection of individuals and come together as a trusting team, unlocking a collective creativity and capacity. Many restaurants focus on having a pre-service meeting, but so many do it wrong, in my view. They use it as an opportunity to talk about what dish changed, what glass of wine is new, when health insurance enrollment ends. I believe that that time is very, very important. It's when you can remind the people that you work with not just about the what, but also about the why, when you can share moments of inspiration. It's when everyone gets super fired up to go out and take the world by storm. And so we just started talking about unreasonable hospitality at pre-service. By the way, I think every single customer service business in the world should have a pre-service meeting. And we started trying to figure it out. We looked at our entire experience, and we thought, how can we make it more hospitable? I looked at my colleagues in the kitchen, right? They put so much time and energy and effort into every single bite of food that we're serving our guest. From the little muse at the very, very beginning to the little dessert bites at the very, very end. They looked at every detail of the experience and brought unbridled intention and creativity to it. And so I said, let's do that with the service. Let's do that with the experience. How can we match their creativity with our own? Because what I quickly found was that in most customer service organizations, ours included, too many people focus only on the most obvious touch points in the guest experience. By the way, the exact same ones that all of their competitors are focusing on. Because most people have never taken the time to interrogate the guest experience long enough to understand what all of the touch points are. Here's a little secret. The smallest enhancements to the least likely moments in the guest experience can have the greatest impact on it as a whole. We started getting together. We spent hours just trying to identify every single one of them. Because we realized until we could isolate every touch point in the experience, we had an inability to elevate them. I'll give you an example of one of the ones we decided to tackle, the check. I've always thought that hospitality and transaction are not friends, right? Anything that feels transactional is inherently inhospitable. There's nothing more transactional than the check. It's when that really great meal you had, you realize how much it cost. But here's the other thing about the check. I don't know if you know this about yourselves. I can speak with authority about people. Generally, when I say that when you ask for the check, you become impatient. It's a rule. Once you've asked for the check, time starts to move at a glacial pace. And if we take too long to give you the check, once you've asked for it, we've just ruined all the goodwill we spent the last 3 hours building up. At the same time, you can't drop the check on the table before they ask for it because it means that we're trying to rush you out. Most organizations decided that, well, the best way to deal with it is just to try harder and to try as hard as we could to just nail the timing perfectly. But when people ask for the check, it's normally when the restaurant's the busiest. It's a whole thing. So we said, okay, how can we apply unreasonable hospitality to this moment? How can we solve this problem, one of the most pernicious in our industry, by giving more and not less? So this is what we came up with. When we knew that people were done, we knew that you were all not going to order anything else, we'd walk over and we'd put down an entire bottle of cognac on your table. We'd pour a little splash for every single one of you, and we'd say, hey, this is with our compliments, and we're going to leave the bottle here. Help yourself to as much as you'd like. And the check's over here whenever you're ready for it. Okay, no one could ever think we were trying to rush them out. We'd just given them a whole damn bottle of booze. It didn't actually cost that much because very rarely did someone drink any more than what was in their glass, and well, once in a while they really did. But in that case, they had the time of their lives, and it had this added benefit of making the end of the meal feel like you were at someone's house for dinner. You know that beautiful moment when you're pouring the last bits of wine into your other friends' glasses. With a bit of intention and with a bit of creativity, we'd taken this one thing, ordinarily the worst part of the experience, and turned it into one of the things that people remembered the most. And we did those little things across the entire guest experience because we first isolated every one of these touch points and then found the joy in elevating them. Once again, the smallest enhancements to the least likely parts of the experience can have the greatest total impact on it. So we were starting to figure it out. We were feeling it, like unreasonable hospitality. We think we get it. And then about a year later, I found myself working in the dining room, helping the servers during a busier than normal lunch service. And I was clearing appetizers from this table of 4 foodies who were on vacation to New York just to eat at great restaurants, heading to the airport to go back home right after their lunch with us. And I overheard them talking. And they were going on and on about all their meals. They were saying, oh my gosh, that lunch at Per Se, oh my God, the dinner at Momofuku, yeah, but that fish at La Bernardin, and now we're at 11 Madison Park. This has been the best trip. And then someone else jumped in and said, yeah, but you know what we never had? We never had a hot dog from a street cart. You know those moments in a cartoon where the animated light bulb goes off over the character's head? We were at a fancy restaurant, so as calmly as I could, I walked back into the kitchen, dropped off the plates, and then ran outside of the street corner in front of the restaurant, bought a hot dog from the guy that worked there. His name was Abraham. Brought it back into the kitchen. Then came the hard part, convincing the chef to serve it in our fancy restaurant. I have a thing we talk about a lot. especially in partnerships, when two people are really passionate about what they do. It's that we should all embrace tension. Because if you are lucky enough to be surrounded by other people who are as motivated and as passionate about what you do as you are, tension is inevitable. Because while you may agree on what you're trying to accomplish, it is never the case that you will agree on how to get there. But in those moments of tension, where as part of the human condition we have this urge to lean back, that's actually when you should lean forward and celebrate the fact that you are one of the lucky few that gets to work alongside people that care as much as you do. And we had a lot of rules on how to break moments of tension, but one of them was this card that each of us was allowed to play from time to time. It was the "this is important to me" card. If during an argument someone said, "this is important to me," that was the end of the conversation. There was also a rule that you weren't allowed to overplay the "this is important to me" card. But I asked him to trust me. I told him it was important to me. And he got to work cutting up the hot dog into perfect little pieces, adding a little swoosh of ketchup and a swoosh of mustard and perfect little quenelle of sauerkraut and relish to each plate. Then, before their final savory course, which at the time was a 2-week-aged honey lavender glazed Muscovy duck, I went out with what we in New York call a dirty water dog. And I explained it. I said, I want to make sure you don't go home with any culinary regrets. Here's a New York City hot dog. And guys, they freaked out. I'm stressing, is that my phone that's making this? I'm not actually trying to throw shade on anyone right now. I just want to make sure it's not me. Okay. Up until that moment in my career, I had served hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of food. I'd served Wagyu beef, butter poached lobster, caviar, foie gras. I had never seen anyone react the way that they did to that $2 hot dog. Each one said it was not only the highlight of their meal, but of their entire trip to New York. And they'd be telling the story for the rest of their lives. You know how athletes go to the tapes when they've had a bad game to see what they could have done better? They don't often enough go to the tapes when they've had a good game to see what they did well to make sure they keep on doing that thing. That's how you take moments of organic inspiration and systemize them such that you have the capacity to repeat them. It kind of breaks my heart how many moments of brilliance happened that could have changed the world in some small way, but didn't because they were just let, flutter out into the universe. But so I went back to the tapes on that hot dog. What happens that it could happen? What needed to start happening so that it would happen all the time? The first is it required being present, which I get it, it's way overused these days. But especially for me in hospitality, it's very important because for me, being present means caring so much about the person you're with that you stop caring about all the other things you need to do. I think so often in work and in life, we have such long to-do lists that we have an inability to slow down for long enough to actually listen to the people around us, to the things they're saying, and to all the things they're not saying. If I had not been present at that table, I never would have heard the throwaway line about that hot dog. The second, it required taking what we did seriously, but not taking ourselves too seriously. And this is really important. Because way too often in customer service, we let these self-imposed standards get in the way of us giving the people around us the things that will bring them the most joy. A hot dog in a 4-star restaurant is utterly sacrilegious until you look at the way that it makes them feel. By the way, I felt this at the airport when I flew in last night. So I've been hearing about this airport for so long. I saw the video. Okay, you guys take your airport seriously. And I was super excited to see it. And then I went down and I was going to get the car. And I got to where baggage claim was. And wherever my baggage claim was, it's being worked on right now. The rug, which I understand, the rug. I get it. But this was not that rug. And this rug needed to be replaced. There was like tape on the ground and stuff. And I was like, oh man, that's kind of a letdown. And then I looked up and on the I was so tired when I got here last night. My flight got delayed, I got in super late, and I started laughing out loud at the airport last night because there was this giant Post-it note on the wall. This giant Post-it note, like half the size of one of these screens, and it said, "To do, replace rug." And I think I'm looking at this table, I'm just trying to figure out this table. Okay, that's the coolest thing ever. And I'm serious, because, I mean, the architecture, everything that you're doing is so serious, but hospitality comes from not taking yourself so seriously. The third was, if we agree that hospitality is about making people feel seen, then the best way to do that is not to treat people like a commodity, but as a unique individual. In unreasonable hospitality, one size fits one. I genuinely believe I could have given that table a free bottle of vintage champagne and a Home Depot bucket full of caviar, and it would not have had the same impact as the $2 hot dog, because it would not have been specific to them. See, this whole experience caused me to recognize that up until then, I hadn't actually fully understood what I did for a living. Because in my world, the food, the service, the room, they're simply ingredients in the recipe of human connection. Our reason for being is to make people feel seen. It's to give them that sense of belonging. If the hot dog was our true north, now we had a roadmap and we got started right away. Each night at pre-meal talking about the hot dog and each one of those three things, and we got started. And each night the team would go out and find a couple things that they could do for their guests. But I quickly realized that giving the team permission, giving them an idea, but not following it up with the resources to bring it to life isn't a strategy, it's just a fun thing to talk about. Anyone here who's ever worked in restaurants can relate to the fact that there's not a bench in the back with a bunch of people sitting idly by in the middle of service to go run an errand in the middle of service. And so I'd given the team permission to do cool stuff, but not the resources to make it happen. And so we hired a position under the team, someone that we called the Dreamweaver, named after the iconic song by Gary Wright. Raise your hand if you've heard it. It was playing the first time I French kissed a girl. If you haven't heard it, I challenge you to listen to it and not have it in your head for the rest of the day. And if you have heard it, you don't need to listen to it. It's now stuck in your head for the rest of the day. And with the addition of that position, we were on fire. Each night, doing countless little gestures for the people that we were serving, from the little ones to the big ones. And most of the ones, the littlest ones, were the most impactful. Because it's not the size of the gesture that counts, it's how thoughtful it is. One of our servers overheard a guest who was also going home to see his family right after his dinner with us, complaining that he had forgotten to get his daughter an I Heart New York teddy bear. It's an easy one. We ran out to the store, got an I Heart New York teddy bear, and gave it to him on his way out the door. Think about how that felt. One time, a couple was having dinner with us as kind of a consolation marriage because their families stopped getting along. And they basically called off this big wedding they had planned. And so the server just spent a lot of time talking to them over the course of the meal with one very clear intention. She was going to figure out what their wedding song would have been. And at the end of their meal, our private dining room was empty. We put a ton of candles in the private dining room. Everyone on our team who was no longer working, we had them all waiting up there, and they all started dancing. And we brought the couple in such that they could have their first dance. Or we did some big stuff, too. One time, our minimum wage earning reservationists learned when they were confirming someone's reservation that they were actually coming in to console themselves after their beach vacation flight was canceled. Our private dining room was empty that night as well. So the Dreamweavers went down the street to Home Depot with our handymen, and we got a ton of sand and a kiddie pool and beach chairs, and at the end of their meal, we turned our private dining room into a beach scene, and we served them Mai Tais while they had their feet dipped in the water. Thank you. It was cool. There was a lot of good stuff happening, but I wanted more of it because these things were all improvisational, right? We were relying on the creativity of the team and picking up things in the moment and having the bandwidth to turn them around and execute them right away. I think if you really believe in something, you need to make it as easy as possible for your team to execute it as consistently as possible. And so we started doing some simple pattern recognition, looking for recurring moments such that we could build a toolkit. We knew that a lot of the same things happened all the time, and so we just sandbagged such that we were ready to deploy things that we had already built in advance at a moment's notice. One of the things that would happen relatively consistently, especially for the people that did decide to drink the entire bottle of cognac, is they'd say, "We're going to be hungover tomorrow." And so we'd have hangover kits in the back, just ready to deploy at a moment's notice. Didn't make the guest feel any less good that it was that easy for us to execute. It was still specific to them. Or one of the things we realized was that a lot of people came into our restaurant to get engaged. Now, raise your hand if you got engaged in a restaurant. Okay, what did they do for you when you got engaged? Champagne bottles. Yeah, they poured you some champagne, right? By the way, if anyone ever does get engaged in a restaurant and they don't pour you free champagne, report them to the police. That said, it's reasonable hospitality. We tried to figure out how can we build a toolkit around this? How can we make this moment more unreasonably hospitable? Tiffany and Co. had their corporate offices across the park from us. And so one day during family meal, I just walked across the park, started knocking on doors, found the director of marketing, and convinced them to do the following. They gave us 1,000 little baby blue boxes, each of which had 2 champagne flutes in them, and we put them in a closet in the back. Every time someone would get engaged, we'd pour them complimentary champagne like everyone else would, but what they wouldn't realize was their flutes were just a little bit different from everyone else's flutes. And after they finished their champagne, we'd bring those flutes back into the back, clean them, put them back into the box, and on their way out the door, we'd give them their champagne flutes and say, thank you for trusting us with such a special moment. We want you to have a little memory. By the way, it cost nothing. Didn't cost us anything, anyway. And for Tiffany, it was the most amazing investment because I guarantee you every single one of those people put a lot of Tiffany stuff on their registry. And most of the people we did that for would come back into the restaurant every single year because of the impact that small gesture had made. Here's the thing. With all of the gestures I just described and many, many, many more, it was a win-win-win. First, thousands of gestures later, we went back to Australia in 2017 for the awards. They started at 50. It wasn't us. We got all the way down to 30. It wasn't us. They got down to 20. I blacked out, came back to at 5. And at the end, and by the way, I'm not making this up. This is actually a true story. It's just so poetic. There were 2 restaurants left, right? And so whatever one they call for number 2, you know that the other one is number 1. It was us and the guy Massimo from Italy. They called him at number 2, and we'd become the number 1 restaurant in the world. Thank you. Thank you. But we got there not by focusing on product, but by focusing on people, not by focusing on the thing that we were serving, but how we were going to make everyone feel when we were serving it. It was a win-win-win. Okay, obviously the guests were happier, but our bottom line was happier. If not for the accolade, which kept us full for years following, for just the word-of-mouth marketing that came so organically from those moments. Every dollar we spent on either the Dreamweavers or some sand or a hot dog or a teddy bear, whatever, was far more powerful than any dollar of traditional marketing we'd ever spend. Here's the thing, and you all know this as well as anyone, people don't really collect things anymore. They collect experiences. Our responsibility, all of us together, is to give people a story that helps them relive that experience over and over and over again. Otherwise, it's not an experience worth collecting. So the guests were happy, our bottom line was happy, but so is our team. And this is a big one. For the first time, the people on my team had creative autonomy. They were genuinely empowered. They were no longer just serving plates of food that someone else had created. They were imbuing the experience with their own creativity. And I don't know about you, but there is no one out there that won't give more of themselves to help make something great than when they feel they have a hand in determining what that thing is. It's how things have changed, right? Leadership, once upon a time, just required having someone in the room that had the confidence and conviction to say, this is where we're going, and everyone would go there. It's like Braveheart days. And then over time, that wasn't enough anymore. Maybe it was Simon Sinek and the book Start With Why, or everything that led up to that moment. People wanted to be inspired why they should want to go there. But generationally, that's not enough anymore either. Being told where to go, even being inspired to go there, is not enough. People need to be invited to help determine how you're going to get there. When everyone on the team feels that genuine sense of ownership in the mission is that much more likely to be successful. But they were all happy for another very, very big important reason. They were making other people really happy. And there is nothing more energizing than seeing the look on someone's face when they receive a gift you are responsible for giving them. We had systemized a culture of permission and resources such that our entire team could be generous. Everyone's struggling with keeping their team staffed right now, or kind of solving for depletion in the workplace. And most people are doing one of two things. They're paying people a bit more, they're giving people a bit more time off, both of which are important, but insufficient. Because what they're doing is they're treating the symptoms, not the illness. What we need to do to make sure our teams come alive is to make the work matter again, to make it fulfilling, energizing. Because if you give someone an extra day off and it's just a little bit more time such that they can be restored, so they can come in and get depleted all over again, then what have you actually accomplished? Okay, so why is a guy that ran a fine dining restaurant in New York City here talking to all of you today? Let's address that. Well, to me it makes perfect sense. One of the things we would always do in those pre-service meetings I talked about was name for ourselves and the people around us why our work matters. I think that's really important. There are hard days. Work is hard sometimes. And if you don't believe with every ounce of your being that what you do for a living has the ability to positively impact human beings around you, it's very difficult to find any energy, any juice to give when you feel exhausted. But if you understand that there's nobility to the work, your gas tank will never run dry. In restaurants, we have the ability to help people celebrate some of the most important moments of their lives. Conversely, we can give people the grace, if only for a few hours, to forget about their most difficult moments. We can inspire people to be better versions of themselves through our attention to detail, or if I'm getting super soapboxy, and I genuinely believe this, we can make the world a nicer place just by being really nice to everyone that walks through our doors. As he said about what I wrote in my book, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to create magical worlds in a world that needs more magic. And guess what? That's what all of you get to do as well, all of those things, especially right now. If there's one thing that we are collectively reminded of over the past few years is it's our human need to feel connected to other human beings. And when people travel, when people explore, when people leave the world behind for long enough, when they put the world on pause for long enough to actually genuinely connect with the people that they care about and go out and be reminded of the beauty of the world that we get to live in. It's things like that that have the capacity to change the world around us. And you guys all get to do that in one of the most beautiful places on earth. So, I'm here to share my story, some of the lessons I've learned along the way, and to ask that the next time you find yourself pursuing a relationship with someone you work with or someone that you are lucky enough to serve, to try being just a bit more unreasonable, to give them that sense of belonging, to give them a memory that will last a lifetime. Because I can promise you this, it will transform your business. And it'll make you and all of the people you surround yourself with feel really, really, really good. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I think I'm staying up here for Q&A, or maybe I'm not.
You are.
All right. I still want to be the guy just still standing here. My feelings will not be hurt if no one has a question. I'm also happy to answer any of them if you do. Yes, sir. Oh, a mic is coming up from behind you.
What's the current status of the restaurant, or does it still exist under other management?
I sold the restaurant in January of 2020. Not due to some prescient knowledge of the world's pending collapse, but that's why I actually had so much time and space to get to know Erica with the Independent Restaurant Coalition. It is still around.
When you sell a restaurant, is that not akin to giving up a child?
It's more akin to giving up 150 children. It's hard when a restaurant is your entire life. I think, though, and gosh, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this. Well, I had gotten to a point in my life where I had an opportunity to have a second mountain in it. And I wanted the space and the grace to pursue that. I've always found that once I don't have any ability to innovate or contribute more to the place I'm in, it's appropriate to pass it along to the people that I've trained and let them make it their own, such that I can go and find another way to do it.
Thank you. I have a restaurant group on the Oregon coast. We only have 3 locations so far, and we don't have any stars of any kind like that. But I wondered if you would be open to inviting some Oregon restaurateurs to be in conversation with you on a monthly or some kind of basis and be a mentor for us.
Hey, you know what? You just got to go for it. I respect that.
Yeah. You probably have an existing program that I could join.
Well, I don't, but you know what? I think let's triangulate this a little bit.
Thank you.
And see, I'm honored by that request, sincerely. I always say, well, I don't say it, my dad says it, you're never too old to have a mentor and you're never too young to be one. And that's one of the things that we can do most consistently to support one another is to share ideas. And so if there's a way from a reasonable scheduling perspective that can make that work, I would love that.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Hi. I love your examples. They're wonderful, and I think so many of them depend on like a surprise. And I was wondering if you ever had experiences where customers came in and like are starting to expect their surprise. Did that become an issue?
Yeah, but it was fun. I'll tell you what, we called all of those things legends. And the reason we came up with the name is because, yeah, it started to get out there. And one guy, we were in a building with a big investment bank upstairs, and this guy came in and he sat down and he goes, "All right, what are you going to do for me?" And we're like, well, we played along. We were having fun with him. We're like, "What do you want?" He goes, "Well, I need $1 million to close this round I'm trying to finance right now." And so we were like, all right. We went to the local store and bought 10 100 grand bars and just served him that for dessert. Yeah, but that's the fun, like, right? Like, my mentor, one of my mentors, Danny Meyer, would call it athletic hospitality. Like, how do you strengthen the muscles such that you get excited to respond at every time? I'd also say that it works really, really well when things go wrong. One of the coolest parts of this experience since the book came out in October is all the stories I've heard from others. And one guy who runs a big, big chain of casual dining restaurants called me and he goes, "I did unreasonable hospitality. I just didn't know what it was called at the time." They have soft serve, free soft serve at every one of their restaurants, and it's always vanilla and chocolate. And in a moment of creativity, he decided to, in the Buffalo market, remove vanilla and put like, I don't know, like Rocky Road or something. Nothing like crazy, right? And the customer service email got a note from a guy that was a regular saying, "I cannot believe you removed the vanilla soft serve. I will never come to your restaurant again." It's a little intense. But so the CEO of this company called the guy that ran the restaurant in Buffalo and said, "Hey, right now, get in your car, go to the supermarket, get a gallon of vanilla ice cream and drop it off at this guy's house. And say, we're going to bring it back until we do. I hope this will tide you over." By the way, it felt like this is the thing. the pride in this guy's voice when he was telling me this story, you could tell that it was as much a gift for him to give as it was for the other person to receive. It can become the most beautiful addiction, and it can transform people, buildings, companies, places, if it takes root. Someone over here. Oh, yeah.
First, I did get a chance to go to 11 Madison Park when I lived in New York, and it was one of the best dining experiences I've ever had, so thank you.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
But as I spent a lot of time in the industry, and that was something that we would talk about is how much of an impact do you, what is it the food? If the food can be incredibly wonderful, but the service isn't as great, or vice versa, do you think that one is more important than the other? The service and the hospitality that people are receiving, or the food that is being served?
Yes, I do. This is almost universal when you talk to people. If you go to a restaurant and the food is great, but they treat you like crap, you're not going back. If you go somewhere and the food is mediocre, but they treat you really, really well, you're going to give it another shot. I believe that the best way to accomplish anything of significance is to choose conflicting goals. Excellence in the food, hospitality in the service, those aren't friends. Excellence and hospitality, pursuing them simultaneously is the way to unlock opportunities that no one else has. But I can answer that from my own perspective as a diner as well as a restaurateur, that I will never go back to a place where they make me feel anything but welcome. I will go back to a place if it wasn't the best cheeseburger of my life. Yes. Oh.
Hi, I was just curious, what are your plans now? Seems like you reached your big napkin goal, so just curious about what's next.
I need to find a cocktail napkin. No, so it's interesting. When COVID started, I think we can find ourselves kind of confused that what we do is who we are, that our entire identity is wrapped up in our work. And so I sold my restaurants in pursuit of the second mountain I was talking about, and then immediately had an existential crisis. Like, wait, who am I without restaurants? And so quickly, frantically, I started putting together a team, raising money, and I was, and this is not hyperbole, 1 week away from signing 3 restaurant leases and an office lease in New York City when COVID started. My wife and I moved up to our place in the country, kept all the deals alive, and then a few months in, I just kind of realized I didn't want to do that. I think for a lot of us, COVID was hard, right? People, ourselves or those that we're close to, lost, whether it was life, money, stability. But most people can look to COVID and recognize something good that came out of it for them, even if it's a very, very small thing. For me, it was that it gave me the grace and the space to decide what I wanted to do next, as opposed to running back and doing the thing that I'd always done. And so step one was I wrote a book, made 2 babies, and now I'm figuring out what I want to do next. The last thing I'll say about the pandemic thing is one of my close friends, I'm on the board of a restaurant called Canless Restaurant in Seattle. Do you guys know Canless in Seattle? Really, really good restaurant. There's 3 brothers. It's the 3rd generation that runs it. It's the 2 younger brothers that run the restaurant. The oldest is a pastor. And remember when COVID started, we'd have all those Zooms where we'd get together without agenda with people that we love just to feel close to someone that didn't live in our house. And you just start sharing, and the older brother, the pastor, said, you know, I heard a prayer today that I wanted to share with you guys. It was an older woman who came into the church and said, I pray the things we're being forced to do today are things we choose to do tomorrow. Talking almost back to athletes going to the tapes to see what they did well. Like, what were we forced to do over the past 3 years that we want to make the choice with intention to do going forward? And I'm trying to look at this past season and then the season before it and cherry pick my favorite things from each and use that as a roadmap to figure out where I'm going next.
Yeah, I heard that the pre-service meeting was key for your process. Could you elaborate a little bit on kind of systems and goals of that?
Yeah. Okay, systems. It's mandatory for the people you decide it's mandatory for. It happens at the exact same time of the day, every single day, and it happens for the exact same number of minutes every single day. You don't start it, and if you don't have enough content to fill it, you break early. It is done with as much rigor and intensity and structure as anything else that you do. There are notes, such that you don't waste time talking about things that could be read. It's not dissimilar to one of the things that a lot of companies talk about. Don't have a meeting if it could be expressed through an email. Instead, take advantage of gatherings to actually accomplish things that can't be accomplished through the written word. And it was just a lot about sharing moments of inspiration. And like the thing that I just talked about with the vanilla ice cream from that casual, that would have been a pre-meal for a week. It was also very important to me that I wasn't the only one leading the pre-meals. So I did for the first 2 years of our turnaround, but then ultimately wanted everyone on the team to start leading them as well. With a few reasons. One, the more responsibility you give people, the more responsible they become. Two, the best way to learn is to teach. And I found by making everyone feel the responsibility to inspire, we all started just inherently being more inspired. And whoever was leading the pre-meal needed to understand what they wanted to accomplish out of that 30 minutes before the 30 minutes started. It's the basic framework I could provide. Hey, this has been a blast. I appreciate you all. I hope you have a great couple days. Thank you.
He needed a cocktail napkin, ran out and got a cocktail napkin. There's 3 there for you, buddy. Thanks, Will.
Thank you.
Appreciate you very much.
Thank you guys so much.
Will Gadara. Lisa, why don't you start working your way up? I know you got some housekeeping things. I'm kind of hijacking this for just a moment because this was supposed to be Lisa just doing housekeeping, but it's going to be me for just a second because I have a favor to ask of you. We've been asked by the U.S. Travel Association. They do an event at IPW every year where they celebrate the top 100 inbound international tour operators that are sending business to the United States. They call it the Chairman Circle Honors. And this year, they're putting together a tribute video, a thank you video. And they reached out to me and asked if we would submit no more than 15 seconds. So that gives you an idea. But they wanted about a 15-second video of like me saying thank you. And it's kind of like, that's not very unreasonable. You know, we need to do this the way Oregon would do this. And so reached out to our global sales team to page her, and it's kind of like, okay, we'll do it with the global sales team. It's kind of like, no, we're going to ask for an extension because this was due last week. We asked for an extension so we could do it here. So if your business, your community, your life has been touched by international visitation to Oregon, when we adjourn, please move immediately up here because we're going to do this really quickly. Like I said, one take, it's 15 seconds. It's going to be me like saying, hi, this is us, and then we're all going to say something together. Basically like, congratulations and thank you for thinking of Oregon. You know, it's really straightforward. That's how much time we've got. So, like I said, if your business, your life, your community has been touched by international visitation, stay back and let's make Oregon a really unreasonable part of this video that they're putting together for these top 100 tour operators. Lisa, come on up.
Good morning, everyone. I know I'm standing between you and your break and coffee and all the awesome exhibitors and sponsors we have, but I have some really specific instructions for our lunch this afternoon and then for our night out in Portland, which I know you all are looking forward to. So, food cart lunch. Our lunch will be served immediately following the morning breakouts, so between noon and 2 o'clock. Lunch will be served across the street on MLK in the plaza. It's a tented area, so we are prepared for the weather if need be. So you will go down the escalators or elevator, either walk outside or inside, all the way up going towards the Hyatt, and then you'll exit at the top doors and go across. We'll have human arrows, we'll have arrows on the floor, we'll have a lot of great signage. But we're excited to have you join us, and just know that if you want to take your time, if some of you want to go back to the hotel first, that's fine. We'll have a long period to serve lunch. We have some amazing food carts. I also wanted to flag that we have vegetarian, we have vegan, and we have gluten-free options, so please watch for those signs when you're over there. I did mention 4 carts. Please choose one of the carts that you're going to eat out of. You'll get a full lunch. And again, you can sit over there and visit with friends. You can come back to the convention center, or you can move over to the Hyatt, whatever you choose. Again, really excited about that. For the Tuesday night out tours tonight, for those of you that are participating in the activities, you should have received a reminder email for your tour details, including the meeting time and any kind of final details. Please be prepared to line up at the meeting time listed in your email reminder. Groups are gathering in the Ginkgo Berry Conference, which is just right below on the street level. Look for your Travel Oregon ambassador. They'll be holding up a lollipop sign, and they will get you checked in. 2 really important things to remember. Please bring your badge right here and your personal ID. Tours have been very limited. We're at capacity. Most of them are sold out. So if you have any changes, you need to know what tour you're on. You didn't get an email. We have a tour desk right at registration. Our wonderful colleague Keisha is managing that desk, and she will be there till 4 o'clock. So if you have any questions, please see that desk. If you need to grab Matt or I, we can answer any questions as well. But we're really excited tonight, and the guides and outfitters across the greater Portland region have worked so hard to welcome you tonight. So I would just ask in respect for them that please, if you signed up for a tour, show up. If you cannot, please make sure to let Keisha know at the registration desk. And other than that, those are our details. Have a great exhibitor break, and go say hi and thank you to all of our wonderful sponsors and exhibitors. Thanks so much.